The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Lamar Jackson has finally given us a peek behind the curtain.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
Lamar Jackson finally gave us some insight on his injury situation. We also talk about in the second part of the show some experts expressing some concern on the Ravens with recent trends. And then finally, Ravens and Bengals, that Week 13 game. We'll talk about it here, and we'll do that with former Ravens receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com, who's here with us today. I want to remind everyone today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Q, feels good for this team to be back above 500. Felt weird to have them in the spot they were early in the season. You know, the offense was playing well at the beginning of the year. That was really the defense that had to step their game up. They certainly have. It's now the offense that's lagging a bit behind, but you go 1-0 every week, regardless of how pretty or how ugly a win is. A win is a win.
Win is a win. And we talked about for weeks now getting back to the coveted 500, but then also continuing it and getting past that really coveted 500 mark. And so they did that. They're 6-5 now. And I think part of football is testing your resilience, because you know that each and every game, each and every season, each and every moment brings on a different flavor, and it's how you can react to it that's going to really define you as a team and define your season. So the fact that they're 6-5, they're the top of the AFC North, the AFC in general. We've been saying for weeks on this show, as well as our squad show, that it's such a up and down division or conference this year. And for the Ravens to keep pace with this conference, you have to take care of business in the AFC North. Well, you got a 3-game stretch right here where it is going to be an AFC North extravaganza. And at the same time, it's the Bengals, Steelers, Bengals. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all kicks off with the tryptophan game, a.k.a. Thanksgiving Day festivities.
Yeah, we all know Mike Tomlin holds a really, I guess, not so special place in Ravens fans' hearts for that play on Jacoby Jones. And, of course, rest in peace to Jacoby. But I think that, you know, with the sandwich that they have, the Bengals, Steelers, Bengals, we're going to learn a lot about this team probably over the next 3 weeks as they continue their quest for the AFC North crown, which they now lead by virtue of tiebreaker. So that's a nice little thing the Ravens have going for them. But Q, a lot of attention right now has been on Lamar Jackson and his injury situation and how the offense has performed, and rightfully so, because it hasn't been great over the last handful of weeks, where Lamar obviously dealt with the hamstring injury, missed a month due to that, and he's come back on the injury report with the last 3 weeks being with a different injury. You know, he obviously had the knee injury, then it's the ankle, and now it's the toe injury. And so Lamar spoke to the media on Tuesday, because again, you have all these Thursday night game. It gets you all kind of out of sorts with how the practice schedule goes. But Lamar did speak, and he obviously returned to practice, and said he actually gave us a little peek behind the curtain on how the toe injury happened. And I know a lot of people have been wondering about kind of the details on how these injuries are happening or what's going on. He said that he hurt his toe in the first quarter of that Jets game, but he said he's good. And then he ended up saying he's feeling better in some areas, which is a little bit of a shift from what his, I guess, messaging has been, where he hasn't been saying he's been healthy, but it was more along the lines of like, oh yeah, you know, I can't really call where it's happening. Like, clearly something's up with Lamar, and it's okay. I mean, guys go through injuries over the course of their career, and Lamar's been a fighter for going through these things and playing through them, because clearly he's not 100% right. But, you know, it just feels like if every week you're going to have a new injury, you're getting hit and there have been these hits, Q, every week. I'm just like, oh, Lamar, please get up. And that's not what you want to feel, especially with the offensive line concerns that we've all expressed here about this team. I mean, going back to week 1 with that Ed Oliver hit that seems to maybe have jump-started this whole thing, we did get a peek behind the curtain, but I'm curious, Q, your thoughts on, based off your expertise in sports performance and sports movement, with a player like Lamar Jackson, who we know can sit back in that pocket and slice and dice you up with his arm, but then, him with the mobility aspect and him not running as much. I mean, how much do those leg injuries truly affect a player like Lamar Jackson?
Well, again, if you look at Lamar throughout his career and his style of play, Lamar is the most dynamic player in the NFL. And with that dynamic play comes the extreme ability to make cuts and moves unlike any other. At the same time, that fast twitch to super fast twitch muscle fiber combination that he has been gifted with, when you take a hit and a tweak like he has, it affects your game and it will affect it in a very noticeable way. And I think that's where a lot of people are looking at it when it comes to Lamar's play. Like, there's a running lane right there. We can clearly see, oh, Lamar's about to take off, and oh, he's not. Oh, wow, Lamar did take off, and he's going to, oh, boy, he got caught. Lamar is scrambling to extend the play outside the pocket, but oh, boy, they got him. And so it's the unusual look that we're just not accustomed to seeing from Lamar Jackson because he's such a dynamic player. That's what makes it look a little off. And so that a little off is something that brings him back down to the rest of the players in the league. Everybody else is like, hey, man, we don't have to worry about Superman doing his Superman thing because he got a piece of kryptonite stuck in the side of his abdomen. And so that's slowing him down. So whether it be the toe, the ankle, the knee, the hamstring, it's all of those little knickknacks that we are seeing that is causing Lamar not to be at his best. Even throwing the ball, we're not seeing the accuracy that we've been accustomed to seeing, and him being able to dial in, just the different levels of throws, evident in this most recent game that he had. So back-to-back weeks where those injuries and those knickknacks have built up on him.
Yeah, and again, Lamar is not the first quarterback. He's going to be far from the last quarterback to have to deal with injuries during a season. And again, like he said that after his mind says like he's healthy enough to go out there. It's not, his injuries aren't an excuse in his mind, to play the way he's playing, but they are clearly going to have an impact on his game. And while I still have confidence in his arm, even if he doesn't have the mobility as much as, we're accustomed to, having Lamar not be 100% Lamar, or at least as close to that as you can get over the course of a season, it has impacted the offense. But obviously, the offensive line's been that big topic of conversation, which I mentioned earlier about well, he's taking all these hits. If a guy's already banged up and injured, the last thing you want is for him to take more hits and to not feel safe and comfortable back there in the pocket, where we know if Lamar Jackson just has time to throw, he will go through his reads, he will slice and dice you up. If he gets blitzed and the blitz doesn't get there, he's able to go and check it down to somebody or find a guy who's open in one-on-one coverage. So with the O-line and everything that we've seen, obviously Andrew Voorhees had a pretty poor game against the Jets last week. Falele had his moments. Linderbaum had his moments too. Just feels like, like the pass protection on the outside with Stanley and Rosengarten was decent, at least. Like, you at least like to see that, although I guess Jermaine Johnson didn't with his whole social media post thing that he had on Monday. But like the O-line, Q, it is still such a concern point. It feels like you and I talk about this every single week, and every single time we talk with one another. John Harbaugh kind of floated the idea of a rotation potentially with Emory Jones. I personally, Q, have never been a fan of the rotation. I just feel like you start a guy and you go with it. But if it was a rotation, maybe of Emory Jones for Falele, Emory Jones for Voorhees in that guard position, where they're alternating drives or alternating quarters. The Ravens have done that, so they're no stranger to it. Is that something that you feel like the Ravens should try out, if not just for the blocking, but for the health of Lamar Jackson?
The rotation is unique. It's very interesting how the uniqueness of it when it comes to being exclusively the Baltimore Ravens. I have not seen a offensive line rotation like ever. I've seen it with the Baltimore Ravens, and somehow it works. I think part of it was originally to give Ronnie Stanley like those little breaks because he had the devastating knee injury and ankle injury a few seasons back. And because that, he had to kind of pace himself. So they would go ahead and put, that rotation in there. When you look at the play now, it's not based upon whether or not a guy is injured or not. It's based upon performance. And what we're seeing with this offensive line and what you just mentioned, Kevin, the amount of injuries and the amount of poor play from Lamar Jackson because he just simply can't be the player that he needs to be. And the offensive line is not allowing him to set up in the pocket and just like, all right, bet I know I have this going on with me, knee, ankle, toe, hamstring. But if I can just get time to go through my reads, bro, I'm going to slice y'all and dice y'all. Well, the D line for the opposing opponent, like, yeah, because your O line ain't allowing that to happen. And that's the struggle. That's the struggle that we're seeing with the way in which they're playing. So the rotation is interesting if that's what the Ravens are going to do. And if John Harbaugh feels that's successful, because it's based upon your merit and not necessarily because of a guy and his injury.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not giving him time to go through his reads. On that Jawan Briggs sack that Andrew Voorhees got beaten like a millisecond on that play, you could still see the crossers developing on that play. Like guys were getting to their spots, but Lamar was already practically down on the ground by the time there was even a shot to throw those balls out there. So you either have to adjust and just throw more short, quick stuff, or you got to get guys out there. But playing a rookie and Emory Jones in a rotation, not giving them, I mean, it's all like none of it's really a good option at this point. You kind of just have to roll with what you have. And, they're winning. So at least all this is happening while they're winning. But again, the concern point comes up as we get later in the season into the postseason. Is that going to hold up, especially because, and I'm glad the defense, because Lamar's been asked to save this team so much over and over and over again. I'm glad that the defense is, giving Lamar a little break from that, saying, it's okay, you can struggle a little bit, Lamar. We'll hold it down, keep you attached, keep this offense attached. And, obviously there are a lot of different reasons for the struggles for Lamar Jackson, injuries, O-line play, etc.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
The Cincinnati Bengals are 3-8, and Joe Burrow is returning for Thanksgiving Thursday night football.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast.
Joe Burrow posting on Instagram, I'm back in his ancient, much too small LeBron James jersey on Instagram. It's a picture from his younger days. Zach Taylor not really disguising it either.
Mm-hmm.
What were your initial thoughts?
Honestly, so twofold. It's twofold, Jake. It's twofold. One, yay, get to see Joe Burrow play again. By the way, that caption, that's a Snapchat image from 2014 of Joe Burrow in a throwback original LeBron James Cavs jersey from the mid 2000s when he was with Cleveland the first time, when he through SI and through Lee Jenkins announced that he was returning home to Cleveland. And so that's what it was. And it was, he's back. And it's iconic because you have Joe Burrow then, who was early high school Joe Burrow, and one of his sports heroes, LeBron James, is back. Crazy that LeBron is still playing when you put it in that perspective. And Joe Burrow, obviously, one of the best on the planet. So it fits. And unfortunately, it's fit far too often.
Fit. It's a little small. Let's be real.
No, I mean the caption. Like he's back.
It's fine.
Okay. It doesn't fit. You're right. And honestly, Joe Burrow coming back doesn't really fit this season. That's what sucks about this. It sucks because the Bengals defense let us down for most of the Joe Flacco era. The past two games, the offense has let us down, and the defense to a large degree against the Steelers. Let's be honest here. They were not good against Pittsburgh. But you throw that together and it's like, yeah, he's back to climb Mount Everest at less than 100%. Oh, and by the way, not only is it Everest, but now we're going below sea level to get up to Everest, because now they're 3-8, not just 3-7 after his full practices. So like,
and it's winter and you get no oxygen and you're still going up that mountain.
Like it's just so tough. And so I get it. Like, I think a lot of people disagreed with me. I would have played him against the Patriots. I know he would have been super sore today. I know it's a short week. I get all of that. It's just 4-7 with Joe Burrow. It feels so much different than 3-8, given the state of the division, with 2 matchups against the Ravens and a matchup against the Browns to end the season. It's just, it does, but you can't look back. You got to look forward. So it's twofold. One, I do wonder, like, he's not going to get a full practice this week. There's an estimated practice report on Monday. On Tuesday, it's a glorified walkthrough because a lot of the guys haven't fully recovered or even close to fully recovered from Sunday. And then you travel to Baltimore on Wednesday, you have a little walkthrough, and then Thursday you play the game. The good news is here he can get plenty of reps with Jamar Chase because Jamar didn't play, and Joe obviously didn't play. So maybe you could go that route and they get a little bit more of an extensive workout in. But yeah, I mean, this is Joe coming back and needing to run the table. There's no margin for error. And I think that's got to be his approach. And that's just a real tall mountain to climb for the Bengals star quarterback.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear this. There is technically, for now, a path to the playoffs without winning out. But that's like,
sure.
Yeah, the mountain is to the moon. You know, we're not talking about Mount Everest. We're talking about finding a way to levitate at that point. But
with no fuel.
Yeah, like you got to jump and escape Earth's gravitational pull to yeah. We're talking about some Superman stuff, which Joe's going to go try to do.
Yes.
That's why he's coming back. And I think he wants to play football. But there are a lot of fans out there, James, that are just like, what are we doing? What is the point of Joe Burrow coming back and playing football?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big question. And honestly, I hear it. You cannot entirely say, like, that's dumb. It's not dumb. I think it's a reasonable thought process to say, like, if there's a risk of re-injury here, what is the upside of Joe Burrow returning in a season where you need to win out? And not only do you need to win out, you need to win out in a game starting with Thursday Night Football in Baltimore, where you haven't been able to win. AFC North teams have such a hard time on the road on Thursday night games. And that's Joe's first game back. And we know that Burrow has taken time in the past to ramp up. Like, what version of Joe Burrow are we going to get this week? We're going to have potentially slightly diminished mobility, right? Maybe a little bit of a less push off from that injured foot than he's used to if he's trying to wriggle free from a sack or escape the pocket and needs a quick bursty movement. Maybe a little bit less explosive off that leg. I don't know how exactly it will impact him between that and just whatever rust may or may not exist for him, and a difficult first test to deal with in a, you know, I guess they're still all must-win games until the Bengals are technically eliminated, but you're going to get sick of us saying it. Like that's what his mindset certainly would be for this game when they're not mathematically eliminated. And you have a chance to take 2 off of the Ravens who, you know, you go look at the projections right now, the Ravens are like 81% to win the division, according to all those models that are out there, namely the New York Times in this case.
The Bengals can cost the Ravens the division for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they win those 2 games, like the Ravens are in trouble. Like the Ravens better win all of their other games if they want to clinch the division. And we'll see. Pittsburgh may just keep stubbing their toe and go that route. It just, it made me do a whole survey. Like I love watching Joe Burrow play. I think the Bengals are always going to have a chance when he's on the field. They're going to have a chance on Thursday, and they're going to be shorthanded again. And we can get to that coming up, but that's what's so tough about this is he's coming back and it's 3-8, and you didn't get that Jets game, and you couldn't go 500 with Joe Flacco playing pretty good ball. You know, there's been some reflections.
Even 300 would have been okay.
Yeah, 2 wins. Yeah, just even the Jets game. Like if they had just, I keep going back to that Jets game because they should have won by 20. If they had just won that game, well, then you're 4-7, and it's like, all right, we'll sweep Baltimore. Sweep Baltimore, and let's see where you're at in the division. Didn't do it, and so they are where they are. I don't blame Joe Burrow for wanting to return. Again, my mindset would have been, all right, if we're pushing the envelope here and we're going to press this button, let's fully press it. And it feels like they're 3/4 of the way pressing it, and it's just really tough for me to see the path for this to be worth it. Joe Burrow is returning with the Bengals tied for last place in the North. They're tied with the Browns right now. Like, just to be clear, they both have 3 wins. This is the Browns have 1 win from Joe Flacco, 1 win with Dylan Gabriel, 1 win with Shador Sanders. Kevin Stefanski feels like a guy who's out. Like, that's the team you're tied with. So we're talking about the Ravens and the Steelers and all of those things. But I just want to point out that reality of where the Bengals are at and what they're asking Joe Burrow to do.
And they're asking him to do it again with the defense that, yes, there are some signs of life in the last couple of weeks, and we've talked about those on film episodes. They're generally isolated to a few players, and Geno Stone had a great game this week. We're going to talk about that in the film episode. Maybe Jalen Davis can be a shot in the arm in the secondary if he can maintain the level of play that he showed up with against who did the Bengals play yesterday? This is unreal.
Patriots.
The Patriots. Wow.
I was muted. My bad.
Oh, this is what we get for breaking news, forcing us to record 2 shows in a day, Jake. Let's go. Jalen Davis might be something that helps them in the secondary, but there's still all these chronic issues at linebacker. Yeah, Miles Murphy's playing a little bit better. That's great. Joseph Osai has been playing as well as you could honestly hope Joseph Osai to play reasonably. Still not doing much as a pass rusher, but Al Golden's finding ways to dial up pressure at key moments to get off the field. And so, like, instead of the worst defense in the NFL, you have a defense that simply can't cover tight ends because the linebackers are bad. And that's one flaw, and not like the entire thing is terrible. The run D was pretty good last week, and maybe it's because the Patriots lost some linemen. But the point that I was trying to make with this before I forgot who the Bengals played yesterday was that they're asking Joe Burrow once again to do this with a defense that is awful. Even if it's not the worst defense in the last 25 years when all is said and done. And I think that they improved their stock in those categories against the Patriots. It's still probably a bottom 3 defense in the NFL. If they continue to look like they did yesterday and they can be average-ish and have issues with only tight ends for the rest of the way, then maybe you're cooking with something, but you're facing some better offenses too. So it's just such a tall task with what we know this defense has been so far and the corners that are not being turned by so many players. And one of the problems here again is going to be they're not going to have Trey Hendrickson again. We'll discuss that a little bit later, but yeah, big uphill task.
Yeah, it is. And it opens it up for the Bengals to go 3-3 down the stretch or 4-2. And instead of being in the playoffs because they won against the Jets and they were able to win one of these other games that were 1-score type contests, they're right in the middle again. And they have that dead cat bounce that you talk about. There's the phrase. I can't believe I beat you to it, but I did. And that sucks. That's why, like, when I talk about playing them against the Patriots, it's not about, push Joe and risk Joe and risk the franchise. It has nothing to do with that. It's like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to risk him, if you're going to put him out there, knowing all the flaws and knowing how unlikely it is that they make the playoffs, do it with the chance to actually make it. Do it with the chance to not end up with the 15th pick or the 13th pick or the 12th pick. You're either going to the playoffs or you shut them down because why, and do that. And so that's it, is the dead cat bounce is real because they're going to win more games this year. Joe Burrow is going to matter. And odds are we're still mid-January talking about the offseason, not a playoff game. And that's a heck of a place to be in because that's in the middle. And you don't want to be in the middle. You want to be the extreme one way or the other. Holding the trophy or drafting early, especially when you have your franchise quarterback. And instead the Bengals, again, likely stuck in the middle.
And a lot of that's because of the team they built and their inability to play complementary football in some of these winnable games. And it's just very frustrating to see this be the case again, with or without Joe. This was happening last year with Joe Burrow playing at an MVP level. And there were games where the offense didn't finish. Obviously, we talked about that a lot last season, but largely it was that the defense didn't do enough last year. And we talked about all the what ifs in that Patriots game, and those are going to loom large for another year. Again, it's these AFC East opponents. Again, it's what ifs about the Patriots, what ifs about the Jets, and instead, you're staring at this very difficult proposition of Ravens, Bills, Ravens. And then maybe you can start to talk. Like, if they get through that stretch and win all 3 of those games, then you can start to talk.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL.
Oklahoma State has went in the wrong direction, but now they're about to get what it looks like to be a very good coach. We'll talk about that during the show. Are teams like Oklahoma State going to rise back up because they want to be a part of the playoff picture too? And which teams aren't going to spend? Like, even Arizona's had a pretty good year this year. The Big 12 is wild. But we're going to start with something that I think a lot of people have been talking about. It's pretty obvious Texas Tech, barring something very unforeseen, is going to make the playoff. But what about BYU? If they lose to Tech in the Big 12 title game, do they have a legitimate argument to go to the college football playoff? To help me figure that out, Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State. Look, you're a Big 12 guy, and you look at things a little differently than I do about the league, and that's fine. But like, BYU is hard to grasp. They got a true freshman quarterback who has way exceeded expectations. I think I'm being kind. Needless to say, it's a great story, by the way, Bachmar. It really is a great story.
Yep.
And their defense is solid, etc. But in their one really big contest that everybody wanted to see what they could do against a really good line, they got bounced against Tech. They did outplay Utah. They came back and won. And I think Utah's a better team than them, but Utah didn't win that day. So that's bottom line. So those are the 3 best teams, I think, in the league. Tech is, I think, definitively the best. They had the bad game against Arizona State, but their quarterback was hurt, blah, blah, blah. I think they'd have won that game if they had their starting quarterback the whole time, but I digress. But they're in, barring something unforeseen. Give me your pitch from a BYU perspective. If they, let's say they get beat 28-7 in the title game, something similar to what they did in the regular season, why should they be in the college football playoff?
It does almost feel like that they're going to get left on the outside looking in once again, just like last year. I think what the final CFP ranking, they ended up 13th, so they were right outside.
Yeah, they were.
Right? It does feel like that's going to happen to them once again. It's almost like they need to beat Texas Tech, because I'm with you. Texas Tech seems solidly in no matter what happens. Even if they were to lose the Big 12 title game, they're still in. And that may be the best scenario for the Big 12, is that BYU beat Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game, so that way we get 2 teams in, so that way we don't have to have this conversation. But as it pertains to the current rankings, yeah, they're number 11, but there is going to be a G5 recipient that's going to get in there and probably knock somebody out. If you're talking about a comparison, it may not be super comparable to maybe in Alabama because of the SEC, especially the size of the schedule that Alabama does play. But Notre Dame, it's kind of egregious, man. They're the only team in America to start the season 0-2 and remain in the top 25 because they have a fancy helmet sticker. And let's be realistic. Notre Dame could be independent forever because their schedule was always one of the toughest. Now that some of the teams that they play on a regular basis, they're not the same. USC is not the same gargantuan team that they used to be. And I do think that the Big 12 is more competitive on a week-to-week basis. BYU has more wins than Notre Dame. They have less losses than Notre Dame, and their strength of schedule is ranked 6th. Notre Dame's strength of schedule is ranked 12th. That is supposed to be a metric that is utilized more so than ever in this final round of CFP. We'll see if they stick to their guns. If they do, BYU would get in, even if they were to lose in the Big 12 title game. But I'm with you. I don't think that it's going to happen. When we talk about rankings at the beginning of the season meaning nothing, this is where I push back, because Notre Dame started the season, number 3 in America, number 4, something to that effect.
They were up there
0-2 and still in the top 20. So it was always designed for Notre Dame. As long as they won 9 or 10 games, they were probably going to get in just because they started the season as a top 5 ball club. And for whatever reason, they're still viewed in that lens. I don't get it. I understand Jeremiah Love is a good story. Maybe that's part of it. Arizona State last year had Cam Scadaboo. So that was something that committee was definitely probably going to pay attention to. BYU, other than their Bachmeier, doesn't necessarily have that big, flashy, fancy story. And I think that's part of it. Jeremiah Love's up for the Heisman. Nobody on BYU's roster is. Therefore, they're automatically downgraded.
I think the eye test, I mean, I get your argument with BYU. I don't have any problem with it per se. Notre Dame's more spectacular, and Love is a part of that. And I think on a neutral field, Vegas would strongly favor Notre Dame. I'm not sure. Have they announced, speaking of the committee, like their percentages for their categories? Because I still think about half of it's eye test. Now, I think that's why they haven't announced.
They did whenever they came out with the first ranking. So what, a couple weeks ago, they kind of insinuated that strength of schedule was going to be factored in more this year than ever previously. And it did appear that way from the first ranking, but here we are 2 rankings later, and it kind of feels like they've kind of pushed some of that to the side. Because I think Ole Miss, great story, but from a strength of schedule perspective, they're not super high, right?
It's the worst schedule in the SEC, technically.
So if you're talking about some of these metrics that are supposed to be implemented and that are supposed to matter, then Notre Dame and Ole Miss would be viewed less than a BYU. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually do utilize that, because if they do, BYU should be in. I do got to give credit to the CFP. They've given more respect to the Big 12 this year than previous years. But at the same point in time, some of the negative connotations around the Big 12 is always going to be this way until we can do something about it. So if it's only Texas Tech that gets in this year, they have to go play for a natty darn near for the Big 12 to get the amount of credit that we feel like we deserve.
I would push back on that because I don't think a lot of people view Tech as a normal Big 12 school because of how their NIL works. I think they look at them differently. I could be wrong on that, but like their D-line it's Georgia. It's better than Georgia's.
Yeah, there does seem to be this talk that they're separate from the Big 12. And it's kind of funny because, remember, it's the same conversation about Utah. When Utah's good, it's always, well, they're going to go to the Big 10. Now, there's never been talk of Texas Tech going to the SEC, but now all of a sudden, SEC fans are complaining about how Texas Tech is the only school in the Big 12 that's on their level, this, and that, and the other. That's yet another reason I want to see 2 teams from the Big 12 get in. I don't care if it's BYU, Utah, because I do think that the Big 12 is undervalued on a pretty significant basis, and people completely bypass the fact that the scheduling in the Big 12 is the most difficult because you have to bring your lunch pail every single week. You mentioned Texas Tech's loss. It was to the former Big 12 champion in Arizona State, which, by the way, is still a very good borderline 10-win ball club as we sit here right now. So that's not a bad loss, but they did it with their backup quarterback, and that's not being taken in consideration enough, in my opinion, because Notre Dame has a fancier helmet, and Lane Kiffin did a bunch of bitching and moaning about not getting in last year. So I feel like there is going to be a little bit of a narrative that the Big 12 doesn't deserve 2 teams in. And until we prove that we do and do something with it, it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Don't look now. It's a fast turnaround for the Kansas City Chiefs. How do they get out front?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
We're going to consolidate a couple of things here as we get ready for this jump on Thanksgiving Day. And my question to you, Matt, this is maybe the quickest turnaround and maybe the tightest string that we've seen them go through in a number of years. There's some injuries. We're going to get into those, but as a team, as a whole, getting back after having knocked off what was the premier offense in the league for a bit. Now you get another one that doesn't quite have a defense that I'm quite as scared of. But how do they reset, Matt, on this kind of like 3-day cycle to get down, have a simulated practice, 10-10-10, and another simulated practice that is basically nothing. How do they get ready for this?
Yeah, I asked that question particularly to Kareem Hunt today, because he had the 30 touches that he's going to be bouncing back from, and it's like, hey, how do you put it behind you, and how do you get ready to turn around again and play on a Thursday after having that much of a workload? And he was just like, you sleep. you get some massages, you get in the cold tub, and he's like, stay hydrated. That's pretty much. And he's like, stay off your feet. It's just be rest as much as you possibly can. I mean, they had one practice this week that was on Tuesday. It was a quick 10-10-10, 90 minutes. So nothing too strenuous. I mean, they're focusing on the game plan. That's what they're focusing on. And, you count on just what you did during the game as being kind of the exercise and the prep you need physically for this game, because by the time Thursday comes along, you're just hoping you're recovered from Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy for me to look at this and go, okay, they have to go into this game with all the injuries that they've been dealing with. Maybe they get Pacheco back. Maybe that's going to help out in this scenario and get them ready. They're not going to have Trey Smith. They're likely not going to have Noah Gray just because of the fast turnaround. I don't think you can get Noah Gray back because of the concussion. So you're going to be out those two players, and you're going up against the Dallas defense that hasn't been good, but they just got a new piece in Quinnen Williams, who's going to be basically probably inserted to go after the guy that Trey Smith is being replaced by. So you have a very tough task against this Cowboys offense, who is very good in and of themselves before you even start talking about, the Chiefs going up against the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, and and teams do this. I mean, last year there was a lot of focus on the fact that the NFL jiggered the schedule around so that the Chiefs could play that 3 games in 11 days and the Saturday game, the Christmas Day game. But this is the same kind of time frame. But think about the opponents. You've got 2 games on the road. You're at Denver. You come home for the Colts, and now you're going at Dallas. I think this is a tougher turnaround than the Chiefs, than that 3 games in 11 days last year for the Chiefs around Christmas, just because of the 2 games on the road and the quality of the opponent. So opponents and all 3 of them. So I think it is a tough challenge. And you mentioned it, Chris. I mean, this is why I think that to a certain degree for both teams, this is going to be a bit of a scouting problem, because if you're the Chiefs, I don't know how much of the Dallas scouting report before Quinnen Williams really applies. I mean, I think you're almost just tossing all that out the window. I mean, all you're looking at really are the last 2 or 3 games as far as how do you get prepared for this defense. And, for the Chiefs, I mean, if you're the Cowboys and you're watching Sunday's game film and you're thinking about the Chiefs, you're like, oh man, you got to get ready because this team runs the football all day long. Probably not going to do that, but I do think that was a little bit of the element with the game plan on Sunday from Andy Reid's standpoint was, what are you putting on film that the Cowboys are going to see, and what are your team is going to be running to set up for what you're going to run on Thursday. So I don't know what his grand strategy is and his grand vision. There's always something that Andy Reid sees as far as putting together game plans, because he's not the type to just game plan for one game in isolation. He's game planning knowing that he's got the Colts on Sunday and they turns around and faces the Cowboys. So I'm sure there's something that he put on film, some elements that he wanted the Cowboys to see so that he can play off of it on Thursday.
I think you're absolutely right. The question to me is who's going to be there to do that. I love the full backfield. You guys know that's one of my favorites. I don't think the personnel is going to be quite the same, but they might use it. They may not. That may be a decoy just to put on film last week. But my question, Matt, is from what little you've seen and what little we've heard, is Isaiah Pacheco going to be able to go? Are we going to have any possibility of seeing the new acquisition Dameon Pierce, or is it business as usual?
Yeah, I'm assuming that we are going to see Isaiah Pacheco this week. I mean, it's really hard to tell from the practice because, last week he was in a knee brace that I couldn't imagine anybody playing in. And, and now we've only got the one practice to go off of today on Tuesday to really make a judgment on what he's going to be doing. I mean, and the Chiefs certainly are giving the impression that he is going to play. I don't know if that's a little gamesmanship. To just make the Cowboys prepare for the possibility,
because it certainly still seems like, I mean, even if he plays, that he's not going to be 100%. And you know that Kareem is probably not going to be 100%. I don't get the sense that there's a lot of impetus about putting Dameon Pierce in there quite yet. So I'm assuming that we're not going to be seeing him on Thursday. I think they want to give him a little bit more time to get acclimated. Tuesday was literally going to be his only workout with the team just because of the short week and everything. So I think that's going to slow things down. They don't even know what they have yet in Dameon Pierce. So I think that's why they want a little bit more look at him. But does that mean we get more, Brashard Smith working into the lineup? Do you, if Isaiah doesn't play, is it another, Clyde Edwards-Helaire day? And then you got to factor in what's going on with Noah Gray, because that's going to impact you a little bit too. And you talk about, full backfields and everything. I mean, Chiefs like to put their tight ends in the backfield too. And if you don't have Noah Gray, and now it's a Robert Tonyan and or a Jared Wiley game, that it affects your lineup.
And I wanted to ask you, do you think we'll see Wiley this week with Noah Gray out?
I'm hoping so, as much for Jared Wiley as for anything else. I mean, I want to see him.
Right.
We haven't yet, and he's been there for that reason. And I was looking for him in the locker room today, and none of the tight ends were there. I think because of the short week, all the workout schedules are jiggered around, so I didn't get to see any of the tight ends. Didn't get to see Wiley, but I did talk to him a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that really after about the first 4 weeks of the season, he felt 100%, that he felt like he was ready to play and ready to go. So anytime that the club needed him, he was ready. So he's been doing scout team work, obviously, since then, and it's next man up mentality. That. But I firmly expect that we'll see him, because I can't imagine the Chiefs just going with two tight ends.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
A stunning offensive performance, and one player makes the difference for this Orlando Magic team.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast.
Honestly, I talked yesterday about how the Orlando Magic are a good offensive team. And trying to get you comfortable with the idea that the Magic are a top 10 offensive team. They entered Tuesday's game top 10 in offensive rating. And certainly after what they did on Tuesday, they're still in the top 10 in offensive rating. I still cannot fathom. I am still, my jaw, the game ended an hour ago as I'm recording this, and my jaw is still on the floor thinking about just how good the Magic were in this game. And they started 7 for 21 from the floor and 0 for 7 from 3. The Magic set several records. Their 86 first half points were the most points they've scored in a half in franchise history, topping, I think it was 83 from the Scott Skiles 30 assist point game. That is still the record for most points in the game at 155. They scored the most points they've ever scored in a quarter with 51 in that second quarter. They had the fifth highest scoring game in franchise history. They had 9 players scoring double figures, a franchise record. They had a 137.1 offensive rating, which is the season high. They've had their 3 best offensive games in the last 3 games, in the last 3 outings. They led by as much as 46. And I get NBA Cup shenanigans. Again, the Magic are benefiting from this, but I will continue to say that the NBA should cap the point differential at 20. This shouldn't have been a thing. The Magic should have sat their players sooner than they did, but we'll explain at the end of the show why they actually ran up the score and why that's going to be a good thing for them. This was as insane an offensive performance that we have seen from this Magic team. And the fact of the matter is they've got 5 straight games, for another record, 5 straight games scoring 120 or more points. That is a franchise record. And again, this is a team that had Shaq, had Penny, had Dwight, had some really good offensive teams. This is the team, a team that hasn't been outside the bottom 10 in offensive rating since 2012 for 13 years, for nearly a decade and a half. We aren't used to the ball going through the hoop like this. Like that's the point of this game, right? And right now, it just all feels so smooth. Like there's a reason why, and I addressed this yesterday, so go listen to yesterday's podcast if you didn't hear this. There's a reason why people have this feeling like, oh, is Paolo going to mess this up? He's not. He's going to add to it. He's going to make it better. Although it's hard to imagine anything being better than this because the Magic get a 153.1 offensive rating with Desmond Bane on the floor. That's insane. The Magic get a 154 offensive rating with Anthony Black on the floor. This is real. Like, are the Magic going to score 140 points every night? No, that's not going to happen. The Sixers were extremely depleted by injuries. The Magic were extremely dialed in. The Magic put the hammer down 51-26 second quarter, took the game out, put the game completely out of reach, like ended all hope early in the third. They came out ready to play with intensity and focus that shows that they're cup respecters. You know, again, say what you want about the NBA Cup, and we're going to talk about the NBA Cup because I'm a cup respecter. They are cup respecters. They want to win this thing. And this was as clinical and as dominant of a game that we've seen from any Magic team ever. Because not only did the Magic have a 137.1 offensive rating and a 96.3 defensive rating, they shut down the Sixers. In the first half, if my stats will load, I don't know if they're going to load. Okay, they're not going to load. The Magic just, again, I don't have words. I don't have words for how good this team plays. All I have is the one player that is the engine for all of this. And look, it's Franz Wagner. It's Desmond Bane. It's everybody. But no player symbolizes the difference and the shift in how the Magic are playing and what constitutes success quite like Anthony Black. And on a national stage, on the national television game of the week here on the East Coast, Lakers Clippers is going on the West Coast. Sorry, West Coast, you missed out on a fun one. On a national stage in a big moment, it was Anthony Black's turn on the roulette wheel, so to speak. And he delivered a crushing blow. He delivered a game that was, again, just downright impressive. Black scored a career high 31 points, 20 of them in the second quarter. He shot 12 of 17, 4 for 6 from 3, 3 for 4 from the foul line. I know I mentioned this stat a million times already. The Magic or Anthony Black entering tonight's game, or entering Tuesday's game, Anthony Black shot 37% from 3 in the Magic's wins. He shoots 25% in their losses. There's no stat that correlates more to the Magic's success than Anthony Black's three-point shooting. And it's not because, Anthony Black makes shots when they win and misses shots when they lose. No, it is a mindset. It is an aggressive mindset. It is a confident mindset. We know what the starters are going to do. And we'll do box score stuff here in a minute and get to everybody else. Because everybody played well. Even Tyus Jones. Everybody played well. But Anthony Black, what he does when he's aggressive, when he's looking to get downhill, when he's looking to make plays, it changes the whole tenor of the team. It changes how everybody plays. Just like when he is sort of the offensive bellwether, the same way Jalen Suggs is the defensive bellwether. When Jalen Suggs is doing Jalen Suggs things, everybody comes along for the ride.
The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Luka Doncic continues to torture the Los Angeles Clippers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
It was a great night for the big three. It was, I thought, a good night for a lot of the supporting cast, but sticking on this theme of what Luka did tonight, just absolutely ripping the Clippers apart. You mentioned the 5 threes. I believe he had in the first quarter. He had 32 points at the half, 11 of 17 from the field, 6 of 10 from behind the arc, 4 of 5 at the line, plus 6 assists and 3 turnovers. Luka Doncic had 32 points at the half. The rest of the Lakers starters, 31. And it wasn't even one of those nights where it felt like one guy's doing all the scoring and the other guy's, all right, pick it up, pick it up. LeBron, Reeves, and Rui each had 9 at the half. So it's not like they were sitting on some really paltry number.
Efficient work, too. I mean,
everybody was the only 2 guys from the Lakers tonight that were among the rotation players that did not shoot 50% or higher from the field. Maxi Kleber, 1 of 3 from the field. Gabe Vincent, 0 of 2. Everybody else that was, regular rotation member in this game, 50% or higher. Going back to Luka, just crazy numbers from the Lakers, their media relations department. Luka tonight moved past Magic into 10th place for the Lakers' all-time list for 40-point regular season games. This is Luka's 7th 40-piece in purple and gold, which is pretty great in and of itself. It's also just his 41st regular season game as a Laker. That's staggering. He also, again, per the Lakers media relations department, 39 40-point double-doubles. He passed Anthony Davis, irony alert, for 4th most among active players and tied Magic for 6th most 40-point double-doubles as a Laker. He also tied Kobe and Shaq for most 40-point double-doubles as a Laker below the age of 27 since the NBA-ABA merger. He has 5 of those. And again, he is doing a lot of this work in very little time as a Laker. It's honestly staggering.
Just as a housekeeping note, getting a lot of notes from folks in the chat. This goes back, Luka's hatred of the Clippers goes back to the bubble, apparently. Bubble playoffs and some of the trash talking and taunting that went on from the Clippers towards the Mavs and among other things. So as we always say, any teams out there that want to make an enemy of Luka Doncic, we are here for it because an elephant.
We love you. Big hug to all of you. We love you.
Oh, petty Luka will tear you apart, and we're here for it.
Well, it tore Chris Dunn apart. We should make sure to mention it tore Chris Dunn apart. He got ejected in this game for kind of mushing the ball into Luka's chest. Luka took exception to, he said, like an elbow or something during a rebound.
Yeah, it was a shot in the back. It was the Dunn gave him trying to go get a rebound, and
back during a rebound that led to some words, and then Jackson Hayes swooping in to shove Chris Dunn out of the way. Jackson Hayes realizing this dude Luka could keep me a Laker for the rest of my career. You're damn right I'm being his bodyguard right now.
That's my meal ticket right there. And of course, as Dunn is being teed up and ejected, there's the I think the technical term for the look on Luka's face was a bleep eating grin. And just phenomenal stuff from Luka. Overall, do need to let people know, by the way, that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. But you noted this before, Andy. This was one of those nights because Luka went off in the first half, super efficient. Again, made his first 5 3-pointers, but it's not like the other guys were bystanders, and it's not like Luka was the only one scoring. The Lakers shot 60% as a team overall, and the starters shot 60%, and that's with Luka cooling off a little bit in the second half. But we have spent a lot of time over the last week talking about shooting, talking about efficiency, whether from Luka or the entire group. This was a game where offensively we got an understanding of what it looks like when starting with the big three, those guys are all shooting the ball efficiently. I will say the Lakers, very low volume from 3-point range on Tuesday night, aside from Luka. 7 of 12 from 3-point range, again, including hitting those first 5. Only LeBron even attempted 5 threes. So the Lakers got their work done at the free throw line. They made it there 26 times and inside the arc. And again, overall, 50 of 87 shooting and, well into the 60s from 2. But LeBron was 9 of 15. Austin was 11 of 16. When those 3 guys are that efficient, again, 9 of 15 from LeBron, 11 of 16 from Reeves, 14 of 28 from Luka, when those 3 guys are as efficient as they were, the Lakers are going to score a lot of points. I can't vouch for what happens all the time on the defensive side, but offensively, they're going to score a lot of points, even in the absence of DeAndre Ayton,
apparently DeAndre Ayton was the one bringing down the Lakers 3-point shooting, because the one game he doesn't play, the Lakers go ham from behind the arc. By the way, we got an update on DeAndre Ayton. It's a good one. The MRI showed nothing particularly worrisome. He is considered game to game. JJ expressed hope that he could be back sometime this week, which would either be Friday or, I guess, spilling into Sunday. But they don't seem particularly worried about Ayton being gone that long. And the Lakers, by the way, we talked about heading into this game, what are they going to do with Ivica Zubac and the glass? They did a good job on both counts. 10 boards, 10 points for Zubac. You can definitely live with that. The Lakers out-rebounded the Clippers 38-29. They also only had 11 turnovers in this game, so they limited damage on that front. It was also crazy, too, as hot as Luka clearly was to start this game from behind the arc, the Clippers did jaw-droppingly nothing to try to disrupt Luka's rhythm at all. He was
kept looking at their bench going are you going to at least try to get the ball out of my hands?
He was stepping into these threes in rhythm, almost frankly walking into them. He was hitting these step backs without really having to do much leading up to it, much dribbling at all. And as much as we talked about in a recent show, Luka's 3-point volume being very high, even by Luka's career averages, they're very high. And he has not been shooting the 3 particularly well this year. Austin's been in the same boat. There have been times where it's felt like more judiciousness, particularly with the step back, has been needed. If teams are going to allow Luka to take step backs in that type of rhythm,
you're not going to bother guard. There's a difference between we're settling for a 3 or we don't even get this possession going. I'm just going to take a 3 or, dribble, stagnant offense. Nobody's moving kind of 3. And okay, I'm Luka Doncic and they're not guarding me 3s. Those are 3s you really kind of need to take.